What we're going to do this evening is a sequence of things. We're going to hear about this concept LIFEPASS, which is the core of the book, which is called Easy, a life path to creativity and confidence. We'll do 3 games, varied different games, and then we'll see if the games in any way match the model, this LIFEPASS model, LIFEPASS being an acronym. And if they do, and make some sense, then we'll do a more applied sort of activity, which is called a future perfect party. That will help to take the concepts into our lives and into our work. And then we'll discuss some of the applications of these elements of LIFEPASS. So, my name is Paul Z. Jackson, and I'm one of the founders of London Applied Improvisation Network and of the worldwide Applied Improvisation Network, of which this is one of the thriving local branches. So, wonderful to have you all here this evening and join in, as if to some extent we weren't so familiar with improvisation. I know most of you are, but we can think that we are often working with people who are less familiar with it and have some, perhaps, worries about doing improvisation, or think it's just for a bit of fun and don't perhaps see some of the wider applications. So one of the ideas of the LIFEPASS concept is to put some vocabulary to what it is we do when we improvise and try to identify some of the principles and skills that we use when we are improvising in life and in work. So these are the ones that I've come up with. They're drawn from years and years of work of many great improvisational thinkers and practitioners, and it's my take on them. So the L of LIFEPASS is for let go, and that's about letting go of plans that are too rigid or perfectionism that can somehow inhibit us from having a go or being comfortable to engage in an activity. L for let go. I for inhabit the moment. It's about being present here and now, bringing yourself to the space and the time so that you can have a good focus on what it is that we are doing when we are doing these things with each other. F is freedom within structure. Freedom within structure. Sometimes people think of improvisation as anything goes or chaos, and this is far from the truth. If you've listened to jazz music or watched an improvisational theatrical show, you'll see that it is actually structured. Jazz musicians have got a song that they've established and that they return to, and within that structure there's a freedom for them to have solos and jams and make stuff up as they go along. So there's always a freedom within structure, and that's one possible definition of improvisation. The E is for embrace uncertainty. It's an uncertain world. I'm not sure if your lives always go entirely to plan, but if they don't, then you're familiar with uncertainty and the sense of possibility or the unexpected or surprises. And some people are naturally cautious about uncertainty and don't relish or welcome it. And that means that we're at a disadvantage when the uncertainty is around us. We act as if it's not uncertain and start to be distracted by the things that we weren't expecting or that we hoped would happen that aren't happening. If we embrace uncertainty, we can acknowledge that it is an uncertain world or uncertain circumstances and go in there knowing that to be the case and ready to deal with that by using our improvisational skills of adapting, adjusting, going with the flow. P is for play to play. There are a lot of games in improvisational world, and there's a lot of games in life. We play games all the time in various ways. And improvisation has a certain attitude as to how we play. And you can play games to win, and then there are winners and losers. But sometimes it's richer to play games to play, to explore the possibilities within the game, to experience the different offers that that game has to bring. And play to play is an improvisational attitude, and it sits well with play to learn, where you play in order to reflect on something and take something further from the experience that you've had within the game or the activity. A is for accept and build. This is the famous yes and that most people who have experienced improvisation will remember and know about. The yes being to accept something, to appreciate or acknowledge that that has been put into the world, and the and part being the build, to go with that and add something to it, to take the story on, to take the scene further, to continue the action or the collaboration. Accept and build. S for short turn taking. Short turn taking, the secret way to get flow in any collaborative venture. And S for spot successes. Improvisations are about making use of what's there, finding what's working, doing more of that, building on the successes, spotting them first being an important part of that. Letting things that aren't working go, and keeping the things that are working to build on them and construct something useful. So that's LIFEPASS, and we'll revisit it in detail when we've had experience of some improvisational activities, which perhaps will illustrate what those elements are in terms that are meaningful to each of us individually. So, let's begin by standing up, finding a partner who you can do this activity with, maybe someone you don't know so well up to now, and there'll be one person who remains who will get to demonstrate the activity with me. That's going to be you, Ian.
Yeah.
You comfortable to do that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Good. Okay, come over here. So we can demonstrate the activity to people who will do it in a minute. It's a very simple improvisational storytelling activity. Some of you may already be familiar with it. We're going to tell a story together, and in telling that story together, we're going to repeat at least part of what the other person said, maybe the last sentence or the last phrase that person said, and use that as the launching pad for the bit that we're going to tell. And it goes back and forth, taking turns. And we could take a topic or a subject from the other people so that there's something that this story may or may not be about. We're not bound by it, but we could use the idea if we want to, if it happens to inspire us. So could we have a topic or a word that might or might not appear in this story?
Bread making.
Something, what in?
Bread making.
Bread making. So bread making may or may not appear in the story. And would you like to start the story, or would you like me to start the story?
I'll have to start.
You're happy to start. You start the story then.
Yeah. I've known someone who's been bread making for years. They tend to come round to my house with some bread and deliver it and say, try this. I've put some new ingredients in.
They tend to come around and say, try this, I've got some new ingredients in them. And that always excites me because I like new and interesting tastes.
I like new and interesting tastes, although I don't like spicy tastes, and I did find the spicy bread that they brought around last week rather off-putting.
I found the spicy bread that they brought around last week rather off-putting, so I wanted to get something from my cupboard that I could add onto the bread to reduce the taste of the spiciness. I opened my cupboard door.
I opened my cupboard door, and in my cupboard door, I looked, and there was hardly anything there except some peanut butter.
There was hardly anything there except some peanut butter. So I got the peanut butter out and spread it thickly and lavishly onto the slice of bread.
Having spread the peanut butter on the bread, I tasted it. Still tasted awful.
It still tasted awful. And we'll stop there, as that's a demonstration of the story. Would you like a topic for the story to be about?
Sure.
Sure. Enthusiasm there. Lovely, Lisa. Thank you. All right, this story will include a ship. A ship. Or it may not include a ship. It's up to you. Back and forth. A story that may or may not include a ship.
When I was a child,
I got my first
I went there with my family and my sister and my dad. So seeing that ship there reminded me when I was a child.
And we stepped out on the balcony and we heard people talking in the room next door, and we discovered that they were
Gradually bring your story to an end. What made it fun?
I was really surprised by what my partner offered, and I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the surprise.
Anyone else surprised by what their partner had to offer? No? Just stay. Easily surprised. Constantly. Because you don't know. You don't know. It's set up in this uncertain realm where you don't know what your partner's going to say, so it will surprise you to a greater or lesser degree. And the surprise is what makes it fun, to some extent.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And what else was going on?
You were building as well, you were building on the story really, so you starting off with a simple idea of a bike and then just as the conversation flowed, you building some sort of great description about what was happening with it.
And was that a predictable description, or did you not know at the beginning where it was going to go?
Didn't know.
You didn't know at the beginning? Okay.
I like the fact that the repetition afforded the possibility of it taking a slightly different tangent in the way that perhaps a straight yes and game doesn't. That could become something else, that phrase.
By changing the phrase slightly?
By
or
changing the
fact that-
context, yes, or leading into something. So the new, using it in the repetition, the lead on doesn't necessarily have to mirror the original sentence, as it were. Does that
Yes.
make
Yeah, you can change
So you
it.
can change
Yeah,
it.
I see what you mean.
Without you know, tearing up the story,
lines.
without degrading the,
Yeah, yeah.
the consistency of the
Yeah,
story.
yeah,
So respecting
Nice way of-
the intention of that phrase,
Yeah.
even if you adapt it slightly, in order to be able to make maybe grammatical sense or storytelling sense.
Yeah, or just to use it as a little sort of springboard to someone else, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I find it really helpful to have those words already in existence, to be
Yeah.
able to use them. Because once I started speaking, it was easier to carry on. Sometimes if you're telling a story in turn, it can be quite difficult.
Yeah.
You've got that stop, and then if you're repeating that, you've got a more of a flow to get yourself somewhere else.
Yes. If you tell someone, make something up now, out of nowhere, it's more difficult, more stressful, and it's likely to be harder for people to do. If you say, the phrase you're starting with is this,
Yeah, and then it flows.
it creates that flow of all I'm doing is continuing something somebody else gave to me, which is easier. Yes. Any other observations or reflections?
I was going to say that. I was going to say it felt relatively stress-free, considering.
Yeah. And how are the stories?
Good.
Qualitatively. I like the ones that I was in.
After winning.
After winning. Yeah. Who was the worst partner out of the two?
It's a trick question.
That's a trick question for Dave.
There's no wrong. It's a story.
It's a story. It can't be wrong. Yes. Please thank your partner or partners.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.